In 2006, I spent a quiet night alone at my family's farmhouse. My parents were away for the weekend, and I thought it would be a good chance to relax and get some peace. The farmhouse was isolated, surrounded by fields and a thick forest. It was an old, creaky house, but it was home. I arrived in the late afternoon. The sun was setting, casting long shadows over the fields. I parked my car and took a deep breath of the fresh country air. I carried my bags inside and locked the door behind me. I felt a sense of calm wash over me. I made a simple dinner and ate at the kitchen table, looking out at the dark landscape. The sky turned a deep purple, and soon it was pitch black outside. I turned on a few lights and settled in the living room with a book. As I read, I started to hear strange noises. At first, I thought it was just the old house settling. The wind was blowing outside, making the trees rustle and the shutters creak. But then I heard a distinct sound, like footsteps crunching on gravel. I froze, my heart pounding. I tried to convince myself it was just an animal or my imagination. I forced myself to continue reading, but I couldn't shake the feeling of unease. The footsteps seemed to circle the house, stopping and starting again. I put down my book and I listened closely. There it was again, the sound of someone walking outside. I stood up and went to the window, peeking through the curtains. I couldn't see anything in the darkness. I told myself it was nothing and decided to check the back door just to be safe. As I walked into the hallway, I noticed something strange. There were muddy footprints on the floor, leading from the back door to the living room. My heart skipped a beat. Someone had been inside the house. I quickly checked the door and saw that it was locked. How did they get in? I felt a chill run down my spine. I had to stay. I tried to stay calm and think. I remembered that we had security cameras around the house. I hurried to the study where the security monitor was. My hands were shaking as I turned it on. The screen flickered to life, showing various angles of the farmhouse. I scanned the footage, my eyes darting from one camera to another. Everything looked normal at first, just the empty fields and the dark forest. But then, on one of the cameras, I saw something that made my blood run cold. There was a masked figure standing by the edge of the forest, watching the house. I gasped, covering my mouth with my hand. The figure was still like a statue, just staring. I switched to another camera. The same figure was closer now, moving towards the house. I felt a surge of panic. I grabbed my phone and tried to call for help, but there was no signal. The farmhouse was too isolated. I was on my own. I had to find a way to protect myself. I couldn't just sit and wait for the intruder to break in. I needed a plan. I locked all the doors and windows, making sure everything was secure. I found a heavy metal flashlight and held it tightly, feeling a bit more confident. I went back to the living room and turned off the lights, hoping to make it harder for the intruder to see inside. I crouched behind the sofa, peeking out occasionally to see if I could spot the masked figure. The house was silent, except for the sound of my breathing. Minutes felt like hours. I kept checking the security monitor, watching the figure move closer and closer. Finally, the figure reached the back door. I held my breath, praying they wouldn't be able to get in. To my horror, the handle turned and the door creaked open. I had been sure I locked it. How did they manage to unlock it? The figure stepped inside, moving silently through the house. I could see them on the monitor making their way to the living room. I had to act fast. I remembered there was a back exit in the basement. If I could reach it, I might be able to escape and run to the neighbors for help. I moved quietly, keeping low to the ground. I reached the basement door and slowly opened it, praying it wouldn't make a sound. I slipped inside and closed the door behind me. The basement was dark and cold. I fumbled for the light switch but decided against it. The darkness was my ally now. I made my way to the back exit, feeling my way along the walls. Suddenly I heard footsteps on the basement stairs. The intruder was following me. I quickened my pace, trying to stay silent. I reached the exit, and slowly I turned the handle. It was locked from the outside. My heart sank. I was trapped. I could hear the footsteps getting closer. I needed to find a hiding spot. I saw an old wardrobe in the corner and quickly climbed inside, closing the door behind me. I tried to control my breathing, listening for any sound. The basement door creaked open, and the footsteps entered the room. I could hear the intruder moving around, searching for me. I held my breath, hoping they wouldn't find me. Minutes passed, but it felt like an eternity. The footsteps came closer, stopping right in front of the wardrobe. I could see the shadow of the figure. Through the crack in the door, just when I thought I was doomed, I heard a loud bang from upstairs. The figure froze, then quickly turned and ran back up the stairs. I waited, listening as the footsteps faded away. I stayed hidden for what felt like hours, but was probably only a few minutes. When I was sure the intruder was gone, I carefully climbed out of the wardrobe and made my way back upstairs. The house was quiet again, but I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. I found my phone and saw that the signal was back. I quickly called the police and told them everything. They arrived shortly after and searched the house and surrounding area, but the intruder was long gone. The police told me I was lucky to be unharmed. They advised me to stay somewhere else for the night, and I agreed. I grabbed my things and left the farmhouse, not looking back that night. Changed everything. I never felt safe at the farmhouse again. The thought of the masked figure watching me still haunts my dreams. I learned to always be aware of my surroundings and to trust my instincts. It was a lesson I would never forget.